Welcome to MarcusG.tv. I'm Chef Marcus Giuliano, and I'm a chef on a mission. Today's mission is Truth in Menu. Did you know that a lot of restaurants, retailers, unintentionally, and some of them downright, lie about wild salmon? Now, it's March here. It's March 2012. Wild Alaskan salmon is not in season yet, okay? We're before the season. It primarily kicks off in May and runs all the way up until September, maybe a little bit in October. You can go on the Alaskan Fish and Game site and check out the season openings. You can't do it with Washington State. They all have when the openings are and when the fish is allowed to be caught commercially. Okay, so it was brought to my attention a restaurant here, Franina, F-R-A-N-I-N-A, Franina, in Syosset, New York, it's March now, is advertising they have wild Alaskan salmon. And I said, well, I know that's not the case, most likely. Let me get to the bottom of it. It was brought to my attention. I made a phone call, and I basically said, I'm looking to come eat at your restaurant, and I'm concerned, or I see that you have wild salmon on your menu online. Is that menu the same as your one that you have printed? Because sometimes restaurants like to say, well, that's not the same menu that it's online, we haven't updated it. So that's the first thing I did, because if this menu is back to last September, then okay, then I can see that menu being correct to last September, okay? But it's March, there's no wild salmon in season right now in Alaska, okay? The ocean stuff will be out there very soon, but ocean troll cod, but very, 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 very pricey. Most restaurants just simply don't buy it. I can't afford it. I could never afford it in my restaurant to get the proper price at the table. So I call Franina, have the conversation with them. I say, is it really wild Alaskan salmon? And he goes, yes. And I said, oh, so it must be frozen. Am I correct? And he said, no, it's fresh. The chef only brings in fresh fish. I've never seen a frozen fish walk in the door here. It's only fresh. I said, well, that's kind of weird because it's not in season right now. So I don't mind if it's frozen, but it would kind of have to be frozen. No, fresh. It's wild. And as the conversation progresses with him, his definition of wild is anything from the ocean is considered wild to him. And I said, really? I said, then what's farmed? He goes, anything inside of a tank. Tank, not a pen, a tank. I said, a tank? He's like, yeah, a tank. You know, a tank like inside a tank. Like inside, you know, like a building inside, you know, on a farm. And I said, well, farm salmon is from the ocean because it's ocean raised. Now, ocean raised does not mean that this is tricky because some salmon, when you go to the grocery stores, they say ocean raised, okay? Well, yeah, salmon's raised in a bay in the ocean, so technically they're correct. But ocean raised doesn't mean wild. And I explained this to him, and he goes, well, it's from the ocean, it's wild. And I said, but you're not even serving, how about Atlantic salmon? You can't have wild. And he goes, what do you mean I can't? I said, because you don't catch wild salmon. Now, there's a little caveat to that. In Scotland, they do have a small section where a couple of the families that were grandfathered in from 50, 60 years ago, 40 years ago, can actually fish up to 60,000 pounds annually from some of the rivers there. But it's still not available here in the U.S. because it's like 30 bucks a pound wholesale. Restaurant could really not afford that. You'd want to buy, you know, really high class, really good river run like Copper River, Yukon River when that's in season right off the gate. So I said, you're really misleading your consumers, your customers here. And he goes and checks with the chef, okay? Goes and checks with the chef, and sure enough, he comes back and goes, yeah, the chef said it's wild. I said, can I talk to the chef? I said, you really... And I identified myself as, you know, I just came from the Boston Seafood Show. I know a lot on seafood. Didn't tell him I was a chef, but I sort of now kind of tipped him off to saying, hey, I'm in the industry. I'm just came from the Boston Seafood Show, the largest seafood show in the country, maybe the world. I'm not sure about that, but it's a large seafood show. And let me talk to the chef. Let me just, do you mind if I talk to him? And it was very nice. And he goes, let me see if he can talk to you. He's cleaning fish right now. Perfect timing. So after like 2 minutes on hold, 3 minutes on hold, it was a long time on hold, he goes back and goes, the chef can't talk. He can't talk right now. Now, wouldn't you think, now the chef supposedly is the owner, because I asked who's the owner, and they go, the chef is the partner, and the other owner's not here right now. So wouldn't you think if you're the chef in charge or the chef owner, that you'd want to have this conversation with a customer, a potential customer? because this is your reputation, this is your business, and even if you're not the owner, you're the chef, you're responsible for the menu here, you're responsible. Don't you think you'd want to talk to a consumer possible consumer that's really, wants to know more about your menu and really want to have some in-depth questions? Could you not answer the questions? Here's my opinion. I'm not saying that people at Franina are bad people. I'm not saying they're not. They're probably really nice people. Okay, probably really nice people. But my feeling is they're very uneducated on where seafood comes from and the definitions of wild versus farm versus farmed versus ocean raised versus the whole conception of where fish really comes from. So at that point, they are abusing the term wild, because wild does command a higher price. Okay. And they're not the only ones guilty of doing this. A lot of other places do this too. And when I find you, I'm going to call you and I'm going to talk to you. And if you can't answer the questions, then I'm going to assume that you're misleading the consumer on that, okay? Not saying Franina's not nice people. They're probably really nice people. I had a nice conversation with them. But I asked him, I said, please tell the owner to remove the word wild off of the menu because it's very misleading. And if I was a customer and I came in to eat and you served me something that wasn't wild, and it said it was wild, I would be very, very upset, okay? So Franina, please remove the word wild or back up what you're serving. It's March. You can't get fresh Alaskan wild salmon. It does not exist. You have to resort to frozen. So either be positive about serving frozen fish. I don't mind serving frozen fish. I have a great video that talks about how to get properly frozen fish. And I just came from the Boston Seafood Show, and these guys love freezing fish because it stops the microbial count, it stops rigor mortis, it stops the whole aging process of the fish. The consumer gets a better product. You can buy something that was flash frozen within hours of catching it, massaged, back bled, really, high-tech stuff, blast chiller froze, -80, cryogenic. Then when it comes to a restaurant, we can defrost it and the next day have stuff that was just swimming basically, before it was frozen. You can't get fresher than that. By shipping stuff out of Alaska, out of Washington, Seattle, out of Hawaii, out of anywhere, this stuff was out in the ocean. It was caught. It came to the market, to the vendor, to the auction. Then it got put in a box. Then it got transported. Then it went on an airplane. You're still talking 3, 4, 5, 3 days. In a very, very rare case, 3, 4 days. A very rare case. But you're talking 5, 6, 7 days old fish. That's really, it's still considered fresh, but it's not that fresh. Most people think of pristine waters. Think about how you catch fish in Alaska, and by the time it gets to to Anchorage or something, to a major airport, and then air freight it out. Okay, small airports don't typically do air freight because the boxes that weigh 100, 200 pounds get bumped off for luggage. Okay, a lot of these commuter airports that have the commuter flights, they don't get the big boxes. You have to go to a major airport or bigger airport that has jets flying in and out to actually transport that fish. So fresh, just because it's fresh and not frozen doesn't really mean it's that fresh. So Franina, if you are serving frozen, you should be proud of the frozen fish you're serving. I'm proud when I serve frozen fish. In fact, sushi, a lot of sushi fish is frozen. I had a great conversation with people from Alaska the other day about sushi fish, and they freeze it because the histamine reaction in non-frozen seafood can really be problems for certain people. So frozen is absolutely the way to go. Fresh is good, but frozen's awesome. So Franina, please change your menu or be more open to buying frozen and really understanding where your food comes from. Ask your vendors. If you're a chef watching this, ask your vendors more questions. Ask them what's in season. Ask them where it was caught. There's a ton of seafood companies now, really awesome seafood companies. I had a great meeting with a company called Ocean Beauty. Or was it Pacific, Jamie? Pacific Seafoods? Everything is trackable. They know the vessel. They know how it was caught. They know when it was caught. Everything's tagged. It's a meticulous tracking system a lot of these people have now. And Pacific Seafoods is a large fish processor on the west coast of the United States. And they have a whole tracking system. It's easy to do now. It's not that difficult. People are doing it. Track your fish. If you're a chef, ask where the fish came from. Or buy from a company that's tracking where their seafood came from and get an education. If you're a consumer and you're going out to eat, you should rely upon getting an education from the chef or the restaurant. Okay, just don't take their word. If they're really serving something wild or something grass-fed or something from the Yukon River, let them tell you about it. Let them educate you. If they can't tell you anything about it, be very, very wary. If it's just wild and we don't know where it came from, I have one seafood vendor that wants to do business with me on a more regular basis. They're like, oh, we have Alaskan halibut. I'm like, where's it from in Alaska? They're like, Alaska. I'm like, no, Alaska's a huge state. Where is it exactly from? I want to be more specific to my customers. Oh, we have great wild salmon. Well, yeah, great wild salmon from Alaska is awesome, but did you know Kodiak Island has the largest population of grizzly bears per density? And, you know, that's a good selling point. Or the Yukon River is the longest river, 2,300 miles. The fish pack on more fat than any other river out there. These are things that people can actually, restaurateurs can take this information and properly sell the products. So people from the Yukon River are going to be very happy that you're representing their product. So from the people from Kodiak Island or from wherever. So it's about educational marketing. It's about a restaurant and a chef that can actually tell you all the logistics. And for a chef, it's about the vendor who can tell you all this stuff. And they're out there, find them, seek them out, and put the stuff that's on your menu and be proud of it and tell the story. I'm Marcus Giuliano. I'm a chef on a mission. Today's mission was truth in menu.